It'll
never be the same as before. The relationships between neighbors and the natural settings, it can never be the same as before. It used to be farmland. It's with mixed feelings. We have to get used to the fact there's something out there on what was once our field.
They've taken 15 hectares of our land, which we used to farm and graze cattle on. We could go for a walk whenever we wanted to. We feel that what's left is a bit truncated.
Here at Ennemark, amid picturesque rolling plains 8 kilometers west of Horsens in Denmark, local residents are less than enthusiastic about becoming neighbors to a new prison. The region features the historic Tamdrup Church as a majestic landmark and consists of a number of farms of varying sizes. It's here that the Danish Prison and Probation Service has acquired 65 hectares of land for the new prison. Horsens is home to the old Horsens prison, which has housed inmates since 1853, an enormous building complex with a solid construction. So why not renovate the old prison instead of building a new one?
There are several reasons. First of all, the old prison was very old and would have required extensive renovation if we were even going to consider that option. The other reason we chose to build something new was that the old prison fell far short of the requirements we place on a modern prison service today, particularly in terms of security. There were big problems with the way prisons were built in those days. It was therefore wiser to start all over and build something new.
Architects Friis and Moltke won the project competition for the construction of East Jutland Prison in 2001. Their proposed calls for several small prisons within the large prison. This was in line with the Danish Prison and Probation Service's desire for innovation, flexibility and security. The architects also have the special task of evaluating the security of the numerous building components before they can finish off the many drawings which will provide the basis for tenders from building contractors on a very specialized construction project.
Yeah, as architects, when we create the physical framework for any project, we generally have some kind of reference point, some experiences to draw on. We've all lived in homes, we've all gone to school, but not many of us here in the drawing office have ever been in prison. So having to design a new prison, and particularly a very secure prison like this one, really meant starting from scratch. None of us here have any personal experience or reference point to start from, so this has meant a new agenda for the entire project. This has been a major challenge for us.
In January 2003, after several preliminary investigations, archaeologists begin to excavate the Ennemark area where the prison is to be built. Trenches allow the archaeologists to get an overview of the potential for finding traces of the past.
What we're working on now is one of the first areas we've opened up, and it turned out to be a farm from the Iron Age. We're going to open up other locations where we also think there may have been buildings.
The excavations uncover many pot shards, which help date the buildings at the site. The post holes indicate that the largest building was 30 meters long. Several earth ovens are found, which have been used throughout prehistoric times.
It's quite a fascinating landscape we're exploring here. And it's strange to think that in a few months' time, the machines will come in and turn it all upside down.
All traces of the past are erased in May, when the first earth-moving equipment arrives to start leveling the site. A temporary road is built to the construction site, which later becomes the permanent road to the prison. Huge quantities of soil and sand need to be moved around on the site. As the old prison in Horsens celebrates its 150-year anniversary in May 2003, preparations are made for the sod-turning ceremony at Ennemark, with the Danish Minister for Justice, Lene Espersen, and the Mayor of Horsens, Vagn Ry Nielsen.
I'm afraid I have to interrupt here. If the minister keeps going like that, we'll both have to become members of the General Workers' Union.
But it takes more than a minister and a mayor to do the job. Over the next few months, the many workers and excavators create a completely new landscape, storing the topsoil in large piles for later use. The prison is being built in a wide valley, and the extremely wet and heavy subsoil often creates problems for the machines. In spring 2003, a full-sized furnished cell model is constructed in a warehouse at Nørre Snede prison. This is part of the process of designing a cell which is functional for both inmates and personnel. The design is the result of close cooperation between architects and consultants, and the model helps expose potential hiding places for drugs and any other weaknesses.
The cell is obviously an extremely important element of any prison, perhaps the most important element, and that makes it particularly important that we think through every detail in such a cell very, very carefully. From our experience, we could see that the cell worked. We had succeeded in designing the furnishings and positioning the various systems and each individual element of the cell in an appropriate manner.
By late summer, the landscape in the valley at Ennemark has changed completely. Green fields have been replaced by large patches of soil leveled and ready for later construction. The large earth-moving machines now leave the site to make way for a team of concrete workers who are going to construct the perimeter wall. The team has 5 months to erect the 6-meter-high wall, which is to frame the new prison. Concrete is poured into large sections of formwork, which are continually offset. When a section of wall is about to be poured, the previous element has already hardened, and the formwork can be moved to its next position. In this way, about 150 square meters of wall can be constructed each day.
We've spent a lot of time planning the project. One outcome has been that we've tried to use our best concrete workers for the job. This meant the average age of our team ended up being 53 years. The thing we need to watch out here is the wind. Due to safety concerns, we're monitoring the wind extremely closely. The formwork sections being lifted by our cranes weigh up to 5 tons and have a surface area of 50 square meters. If the wind catches one of those surfaces, consequences could be terrible.
Ahead of the perimeter wall sections, a small construction team is pouring an extremely solid foundation for the wall to rest on. Rails are laid alongside the foundation for the large cranes to run on when moving the formwork. The projected concrete usage is 4,210 cubic meters, equivalent to 600 cement truckloads. The work of constructing the 1.4-kilometer long perimeter wall continues throughout autumn and winter. The large wall changes the local landscape and is a new landmark to compete with Tandrup Church. In spring 2004, the wall is almost complete. To reduce the risk of prisoners escaping over the 6-meter wall, it's capped with a circular crown. The crown is completely smooth, making it impossible for escape lines to anchor on it. From a distance, the wall appears as an enclosure that follows the height of the terrain. It's early summer, and mobile site huts have been positioned at the heart of the construction site. Workers are busy laying foundations in the 12.5-hectare area inside the perimeter wall. The first building foundations being laid are for the Section B cell wings and the administration building and the gatehouse in Section F. This building will house the main and central guards and will be the only physical access to the new prison. Over the next 12 months, the majority of construction workers will be involved in erecting the building shells here at Emma Mark. The very first concrete module for the new prison is put in place at the gatehouse early one September morning in 2004. These heavy modules being mounted on foundations on the east side are part of the prison store. The store will house raw materials and the finished goods which inmates at East Jutland Prison produce in the various prison workshops. Prison construction in Denmark is a rare event. This is the largest building project by the Danish Prison and Probation Service since Nyborg Prison was built in 1913.
I expect the well-presented and very functional facilities in the East Jutland Prison will help improve conditions for both inmates and personnel. But even more importantly, improve the relationship between inmates and personnel. I think that many of the sources of conflict inherent in the old buildings we are now using will be removed, making it possible to build a better relationship between inmates and personnel.
In addition to Administration Building F and Gatehouse, East Jutland Prison will be made up of a total of 8 sections. Section E will be a specially high security area with room for 46 inmates, while Section A will combine county jail facilities with normal prison cells and accommodate 48 people. Section C will provide medium security prison cells for 48 inmates, and Section D will be a combined drug-free section and treatment facility with 48 cells. Section H will be a culture centre containing a church, library, shop and sports hall. There will also be a visitor centre beside Gatehouse F and personnel quarters outside the perimeter wall. In September, the first modules in the South Cell wing of Section B are being installed. This section will house 48 inmates. At the same time, workers are preparing to pour the cell floors in the north wing. The cells face each other with a corridor down the middle. Bathrooms for the cells are being constructed off-site. In part due to security, it was decided that prefabricated bathrooms would be installed in all cells, produced by a large local manufacturer. The bathrooms are designed to avoid hiding places for objects or drugs, and all pipes are installed through the back wall and terminate here. The first bathroom for the prison arrives at Emma Mark and is lifted into place in a cell in Section B. The prefabricated bathroom weighs 5 tons and is very carefully lowered into the cell ready for installation. All pipes and cisterns are placed in concealed shafts in the building. Each cell wing contains 2 rows of 6 cells on each of 2 floors, so that an entire building can house 48 inmates in 2 wings. Some of the surplus soil collected when the construction area was leveled is now being used by landscape architects as fill where the perimeter wall is elevated. This helps give the area inside the wall some of the original character of the surrounding landscape. Later, grass will be sown on all the slopes and in the areas between buildings. In front of the perimeter wall, near the main gate, bricklayers are working on a small, nondescript building that looks rather like an ice cream stall.
Yeah, we decided to build a test building. particularly to look at the window designs. It's very useful to be able to build a test building when we're using non-standard solutions, and there are lots of non-standard solutions in the new prison. We've generally done a lot of testing work. We stipulated that all significant components of the project have to be approved, and we have got involved down to the finest detail, much to the shock and dismay of building contractors and consultants alike, it's probably fair to say.
Autumn 2004 has come to Ennemark, and workers are working hard to roof section F before the bad weather really takes hold. The roof on this section is the largest individual span in the whole complex, and traditional prefabricated rafters are being used. The architects have chosen to construct the roof using only wedge-shaped rafters, so that the sloping roofs of the building blend in naturally with the surrounding landscape. The entire prison complex is being built using concrete modules produced at a large foundry close to the site. Deck modules are being installed here at the end of October to separate the floors in a cell wing. In order to manage the multitude of different modules to be installed, the building contractor has divided the site into 9 sections. This means that workers know exactly where and when each element is to be installed. Every element is labelled with a code by the supplier, indicating which section it belongs to and its location. The logistics are complicated, as almost 8,000 concrete modules will be used in the complex. The first winter storms begin to arrive in early December, as the heavy core electrical cables are being laid between several building sections. These cables have to be installed before the frost takes hold and brings work to a halt.
The weather has been very wet this winter. We need to lay the cable before the frost comes. Once we get below freezing, the aluminium is too stiff to work with, and it's heavy. So it's pretty intense work. It takes some muscle. It's been calculated that we need to supply about 1,200 kilowatts. That's equivalent to a fair-sized village. It's primarily the workshops that will use a lot. It's limited how much will be needed in the cells for a couple of lights and a TV.
Cables to supply a whole village naturally require a reasonable quantity of materials. The electricians have calculated that about 300 kilometers of supply cables will have to be laid for the complex both inside and out. The biggest cables will be laid to very large distribution panels connected to the prison's own emergency power system. During winter 2005, bricks are being laid in several sections at the same time. The architects and the Prison and Probation Service have evaluated many samples before deciding on the final brick structure and colour. Special yellow bricks are being laid here. The subtle tones are intended to be reminiscent of yellow grain fields, to make the prison complex blend in with the surrounding farmland. The bricks are being laid in a single bond pattern, so that the facade will appear almost neutral, without a perceptible pattern. In Section C, a furniture workshop is to be built, which some of the inmates in East Jutland Prison will work in. In January and February, concrete modules are being installed for the 4 production halls, which will house workshops for cutting, processing, assembly and painting. The furniture products the inmates will help produce will primarily be self-furnishings for other Danish prisons. In addition, office furniture will be produced for internal use in the Prison and Probation Service, and occasional products for private customers. Sound transmission measurements are being taken in the cell wing to ensure compliance with regulations. But the measurements are also aimed at ensuring inmates cannot communicate with each other by knocking or using other signals.
In our planning for the new prison here in Horsens, we've been very careful to ensure that inmates cannot communicate with each other in situations where the Prison and Probation Service doesn't want them to. We have accommodated this requirement by ensuring no pipes are running directly between the individual cells. Otherwise, by banging on a pipe, an inmate could communicate with the neighboring cell, alongside or above. We've avoided this by running all pipes to an installation shaft. Yeah, actually, all building components, systems and sanitation have been chosen to avoid the possibility of concealing things. The most likely item would be drugs, which take very little space. So there are no hiding places here, in the sanitation systems, ventilation grills or drain traps. We've simply tried to avoid the possibility of concealing anything.
Winter has set in for most of the country, and workers on the site are constructing the shell of Section D. Many of the materials are so frozen they need to be warmed using gas heaters or other tools before the work can be done. The ground floor of Section D will house inmates who want to serve their time in a drug-free environment. Once construction's complete, the first floor of the section will also house a treatment section for drug abusers. As a winter storm still rages over Denmark, a small team of roofers take over Section F in an attempt to complete the building's roof. 25 centimeters of snow fell the previous day, and snow is still drifting in the strong gusts of wind. It's a challenge just staying upright in the harsh winter weather, and the temperature is -10 degrees Celsius. The roof is being covered with special zinc sheeting. Called natural zinc, this surface ages naturally in step with the changing seasons. So these must be perfect conditions for this